right? There's peace. There's joy. You know, it's funny. So Thursdays we're going through Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy 14, there is a absolutely fascinating verse. I encourage you to go read it for yourself. He's talking about, because the children of Israel are about to go into the land in Deuteronomy chapter 14. And so before, when they had tithes, right, you have the tabernacle in the center, right? During the wilderness travels, there was just a tabernacle in the center, and everybody was arrayed around the tabernacle, right? And so everything was maybe a couple mile walk to get to the, you only have to walk through whatever, I don't know how much land it takes to have 2 million people in tents around a big pillar of cloud. But that's what they had. So everybody's brought their tithe to the tabernacle. Always brought it to the tabernacle. Well, now they're going into the land. They're going to inherit the land. So everything's not walking distance anymore, right? And at best, you might have a cart. So the Lord, it's interesting. He says, look, when you go into the land and you bring your tithe, and so, but it's too far to go to where I will choose for the place for my name. In Deuteronomy, it's always referred to the place I will choose for my name because they're not in the land and Jerusalem hasn't been chosen yet, okay? So he just keeps telling them, when you get there, and there'll be a place where my name will be, and you'll go there to tithe. But if it's too far, then you're going to take your tithe and you're going to go to the local city or wherever you can, and you're going to exchange it for money. So your grain, a tenth of your grain, all these things, you exchange it for money. And he says, then you take that money, and, I'll read it because you're not going to believe me. In Deuteronomy chapter 14, I'll make a couple disclaimers after I read it. But in Deuteronomy 14, in verse 22, let's see, I don't want to read too much here. No, we'll start in verse 25. Then you shall turn it into money and bind up the money in your hand and go to the place that the Lord your God chooses. So you take the money to that place and spend the money for whatever you desire. It's my New Life verse. Check it out, though. Oxen or sheep or wine or strong drink, whatever your appetite craves. Wait, what? Excuse me? That's what God said to do with the tithe? That's never, in 15 years at this church, that's never been one of my applications I've made from the pulpit. And I'm not advocating for drinking alcohol, I'm not. And it's most likely not distilled, because stills didn't make it to the Fertile Crescent in Arabia and so forth until about the 7th century, so 700. But the whole purpose of the tithe, and he's going to go on and say, don't neglect the Levites and make sure you provide for them and so forth. The whole purpose of the tithe wasn't supposed to be a sacrifice in the sense of, I just owe it and God's PO'd and I better give it to him. It was for you to go and enjoy before the Lord. It was supposed to be an offering where you enjoy it and you're saying, this is God's, he's so good to me. Look at what he's provided for me. It's a bounty for me. Again, if you have issues with alcohol, don't take your tithe and go buy strong drink, okay? That's not the application I'm making here. The point is for them is that God said, look, if you want to have a wine or a beer in my court, in my presence, as a part of your rejoicing, not drunkenness. Drunkenness has always been a no-no, because being altered in our mind, it's not good. But the point was, it's a picture of just be relaxed and joyful and enjoy what I've given you in my presence. And obviously no family is going to be able to eat their whole tithe, right? Because it also includes, if you have cattle, an entire cow and an entire goat. So nobody's going to be able to eat all of that in one sitting, because normally you would just take it to your city and do it. But the point is this, our goal is not behavior, it's fellowship. Right? So in our interaction as mature Christians, our goal in every interaction we have is not to change someone's behavior, it's to introduce them to Christ. But we can't and we're unable to do that if we are unwilling to die to our old nature, say no to ourselves. The more we say yes to ourselves, and not in this context of going to God and rejoicing with your family, before him because of what he's given you, but in the context of just making sure that I protect myself from others with anger or with snarkiness or sarcasm. I protect myself from from others from just not letting them into my life. I protect myself by making sure I have plenty of money in the bank. I protect myself, me. the more we rely on us for our security, the less that we're going to be able to interact with Christ. So as Christians, our goal, if we want to flip back here, the maturity, the meat, that we're called to walk in, that the Lord wants to share with us, is the entire idea that we're moving constantly away from personal exaltation, personal security. Not foolishness, but looking to self as our preservation.